Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 37 of the Resistance Rundown, our weekly Star Wars show where we talk about everything in our favorite galaxy.
That's right.
So, normally we're live, but we have somewhere to be tonight, so we're going to kind of pre-record for you tonight. So.
That's right. Currently, we seem to be living on the planet Tatooine because it is very hot.
It is very warm, isn't it?
Ugh, it's miserable. Suddenly understand why Luke wants to get out of there.
Yes.
All right, we're going to start with our movie headlines as normal. And for a change, we're kind of starting with some breaking news. And that is that Collider just broke the story from multiple sources that Lucasfilm has put all development on all Star Wars story spin-offs on hiatus. The Obi-Wan movie that was in development has completely been halted, and development on the Boba Fett standalone has been halted as well. Jonathan, is this a good move for Lucasfilm? Should they be halting the standalone features, and could this drastically change within the next week?
Well, this is we've been considering for a while what the repercussions of Solo's box office were going to be.
Yes.
It's sitting at just a little north of 300 million worldwide, which for a 250 plus $1 million movie is not very good.
No.
I think it will get to where it probably will not completely lose money for them. Maybe between merchandise and some other things, but no matter how you slice it, not what they were expecting.
No.
And so with this Collider article, there's also some other, information from Star Wars Newsnet, which is a great resource if you're not checking that out. And it was kind of even more into some of the executive
Basically,
decisions and thinking behind.
Disney couldn't allow Solo to move, which is why it was not moved to December, even though
Right.
Lucasfilm kind of wanted it to. That their marketing campaign for Infinity War was in full swing, which couldn't detract from, Solo couldn't detract from that whole thing.
Yeah.
Also, just some stuff that they had about Disney really wanting to bring in more veteran directors and such from here on out. Just kind of exhausted, I think, with the different problems that they've had so far since buying the franchise. And I think there was one or two other things. Which, I mean, the funny thing was earlier in the week, one of our news stories was that Lucasfilm has 9 Star Wars films in development right now.
Right.
And that's not the case anymore.
Yeah.
Definitely not. Which, we already know that there's a trilogy being worked on by Rian Johnson. There's a trilogy being worked on by Benioff and Weiss. And so in that way, you could technically say there are 6 films in development because, there's going to be a trilogy for each of those.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are definitely halting production on everything. I can see where it could be a good move. I could see how Disney could easily, just funnel money into this and keep on doing Star Wars film after Star Wars film and, just kind of riding that train and letting them make a profit off of it. Mm-hmm. And that's not what they're doing. They're very much trying to protect the brand. So I appreciate that part of it. Yeah. However, as someone who has really enjoyed the standalone Star Wars stories, this is a little sad for me.
Yeah, I'm kind of mixed on it. I mean, I've enjoyed Solo. I really liked Rogue One. But I also understand from the business end of it. And ultimately, I think it shows that Disney cares about the property, obviously, a lot because it has a lot of writing on it. Namely, the massive theme park expansion that's going on, apart from just the IP itself.
Yeah.
So Disney needs Star Wars to be successful, but it also needs to not dilute it down. And I think that's the positive.
Definitely.
That we're not going to just keep churning these things out if they aren't performing the way that they want them to perform.
Yeah.
Whether that's from a perception standpoint or money.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Sorry, I had a thought and then I lost it. This is what happens every once in a while. Definitely had to do with one of the standalone films. But yeah, just being on the topic, until maybe that thought eventually comes back to me. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I think it's a little sad about the Obi-Wan movie. I feel like that is the one film that everyone was kind of looking forward to. And from Weintraub's statements, it really sounds like that was moving along further than what Lucasfilm was willing to admit. which once again, I think they were waiting to see how Solo was going to do. Yeah. That was what was all contingent on. Now I remember what I was going to say. It was that I think for the average movie-going fan or average moviegoer, that the standalone Star Wars stories were confusing.
Yeah, I mean...
Like, for us, it was fine. We understand canon. We understand where all these things fall in the timeline. That's why partially why we do this show. Like, we want to help keep other people kind of updated on what's going on. Obviously, we enjoy this franchise quite a bit. But I think for the average moviegoer, it was confusing. It was confusing as to why they were releasing something, Rogue One, that was before Episode 4. And, of course, all these are out of order anyway. And, you know, I think it's hard.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is you don't reach the kind of numbers that Force Awakens and Last Jedi and Rogue One reach without casual fans and without just general movie-going public.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think Solo is at. Obviously, there's a certain part of the fan base that has checked it out, but even then, there's a certain amount of the fan base that just didn't care. I mean,
didn't care, didn't want to go after Lord and Miller departed. Like, there are so many other smaller reasons
there's
as to why.
A lot of baggage there.
Very much so.
You know, ultimately, I think it's probably a sound decision. I don't think Obi-Wan will go away forever. I think what I kind of figure might happen is if this new movie with Ryan's trilogy does well, which I'm anticipating it probably will, you know, if you come in and have some successes, and I think they may, you know, Ewan is still a pretty young guy. I mean, like, even 5 years from now, if they decide to do an Obi-Wan spin-off movie, he's still fine.
He can still do it.
And so I think there's still that possibility as well. Just shelved maybe for a later time.
And I mean, the other thing is, and this is something that Collider kind of emphasized in whenever they were reporting it, and I appreciate they did this because I agree. Like, this is what's happening literally right now. In 3 days, this could evolve into something else. That's always the risk with breaking, you know, something that's kind of still in development and something that's still being worked out with all the kinks. You know, we had already, exactly. Like, we had already talked about, whatchamacallit with Boba Fett.
James Mangold.
Which, I mean, he was only in talks, so, like, that wasn't officially, like, there yet. But who knows? You know, maybe he comes in and maybe he still has a pitch that they want to keep on doing, and maybe they're going to brand it differently from now on. You know what I'm saying? Like, doesn't mean that everything is completely scrapped to the core. It just means that they're having to rework a lot of how they're doing this.
They're just pumping the brakes.
Yeah, they're pumping the brakes. They don't have another celebration until next April. So, like, there's plenty of time to get stuff worked out before they make big announcements. And it really helps them to focus on the 3 main things they do have going on right now, which is Episode 9, which is about to get started literally in the next couple of weeks. Star Wars Resistance, which is the animated series, and then Jon Favreau's live action series. So, and then everything else is just on the bare bones. Like, Rian Johnson's trilogy is still happening, Benioff and Weiss's trilogy is still happening, but we're still some time out from that.
Yeah. So, at least several years before we see the first of any of those.
Absolutely. Although now, I would not be surprised if we get an announcement that Ryan's first in his trilogy will be a 2020 release, kind of like Bergman was saying. Because now that's how it's positioned.
Yeah.
Especially if Obi-Wan is out.
December 2020 will be that first film, no doubt.
So that was our breaking news for today. We don't have that very often, so enjoy. While we're talking about movie headlines, we'll talk for just a moment about Episode 9. We had a rumor a couple of weeks ago that Billy D. Williams was supposedly getting into shape to reprise his role as Lando Calrissian in Episode 9. And a new report from Fantha Track shares that 2 different sources have confirmed to them that Williams will be reprising that role as the ultimate charmer. So.
Well, we've talked about it for a while. There's a lot of people that were miffed, I think, that he wasn't in Force Awakens or Last Jedi. I think now, probably more than ever, there's a big importance probably to have an original character in the saga.
Yeah. And I don't know what the storyline for Episode 9 is going to be. However, if we're looking at role. Yeah, well, I mean, the other thing is, if Leia is indeed gone, which is kind of what they're setting up in the comics, I feel like, as to what's going on there. Obviously, Luke might appear as Force Ghost, but Harrison's gone. Han is no longer around. I can see, like, the Resistance being at its wit's end and trying to call in some of these old rebellion fighters who maybe, you know what I mean, they're older, they're done, or they were done, or they're quietly helping in other places, bringing them back into the fold, into the main limelight. And
Yeah.
I mean, I think you can make it work with that storyline as to why Lando would now pop up.
Yeah, I mean, it's not...
And not just because everybody loved Donald Glover and Han Solo.
I mean, the thing is... Yeah, that's true, too. I mean, the thing is like, The Force Awakens and Last Jedi takes place in such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
That I think we're going to come into a much longer...
Absolutely.
Distance with 9.
Yeah.
So I think maybe within that time, Landon may already be there.
Yeah.
Is kind of my assumption. And I don't anticipate it to be a massive role.
No.
But it'll be a nice just cameo,
Nostalgic.
a nice reminder of ones that have come before. So.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps up everything on our movie headlines for today. We are going to transition into the small screen, and for once we have a little bit of news about the small screen. Yay!
For once.
All of that will, of course, be changing whenever Resistance launches later this year, but for right now, we're just happy to have a headline. And that is that Omega Underground's offering a new rumor as to the progress of Jon Favreau's live-action Star Wars show. They are reporting that the show will go before cameras later this year in either fall or winter. Favreau is, of course, a producer and a writer on the series, but other people are expected to come on board to direct the episodes. Earlier reports suggested that the first season of the show will be 10 episodes in length and will have high-end visual effects worthy of bearing the Star Wars name. And, of course, Omega Underground is speculating in their report that the show will be completed and ready to go whenever the Disney streaming service launches in approximately fall of 2019.
Yep.
So, Jonathan, does that sound all about right to you in regards to timeline?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're coming into crunch time probably on them starting to get stuff working on it.
Yeah.
Especially for some of this that's going to be probably pretty heavily need to be altered.
Yeah.
Post-production.
And, at Solo's premiere, Favreau said that he had half of them ready to go.
Yeah.
So that was a solid month ago.
And I would imagine he's probably, chomping away at it.
I would imagine so.
I don't think all those scripts probably have to be done before they start filming.
No, I don't think so.
If it's like most television. So, another couple months, he'll probably be wrapped up with those scripts.
Yep.
And they can move from there. But I'm very curious about this. I think, Favreau is extremely talented in his own right. But I think, so far for me, whenever fans are doing Star Wars, it turns out okay.
Yeah.
So
It's true.
I'm just curious to see it in a TV format. Like, Rebels is very enjoyable. But I'm curious to see, like, in a live action, kind of how it does.
Well, I mean, we've only ever had animated series ever since, even before Disney bought it. It was always, they had talked about a live action Star Wars show. Nothing ever came of it.
Yeah.
The anime shows have been immensely successful. And so, yeah, I think we're all ready to see people fight with lightsabers in real life on a weekly basis. So.
Yeah. Very true.
I know I am. I don't know about you guys. Comment, let us know. I know it's not live, but any comments you leave, I promise you're going to read them, and we'll try to implement them into next week's show whenever we are back live on Wednesday night.
Absolutely.
So, we do have a second headline for the small screen. That is that back in 2012, Lucasfilm shared at Star Wars Celebration their new planned animated series, Star Wars Detours. The animated comedy series was created by the duo behind Robot Chicken, Seth Green and Matthew Steinrich, and supposedly had 30 episodes prepared when the project disappeared after the purchase from Disney. However, recent trademark filings point that the project may see a revival after all. Jonathan, I know it's just a rumor, but is this a series you want to see come back to life, or should it continue to sit on the shelf?
I'm not a massive fan of this. I understand the point of it. I understand kind of the cross promotion, possibilities of maybe not tapping into an audience that would regularly watch Star Wars.
Yeah.
But I don't really care for the humor is kind of weird, and then the animation I don't particularly care for either. So
yeah,
but
it's a different style. Which I mean, you can. Jonathan showed the picture. It's somewhat behind us. You can see it on the screen somewhat. Yeah. It is very different. In fact, I think if you go out on YouTube, you can probably Google and still find some of the initial trailer footage that they debuted at that celebration.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds me. The best I can liken it to is like Spaceballs, right? Like what Spaceballs did.
Yeah.
In regards to Star Wars,
yeah.
like it's got that kind of vibe to it. It's very mocking. It's very behind the curtain.
Self-deprecating.
Some ridiculous humor. So like I can understand the appeal. Personally, I couldn't even stand watching the trailer for too long. Like I tried to watch it today and I thought no. Just because these are some of beloved characters for me, I really don't like them being so stupid. So
That's...
personally, but if you guys like the Star Wars Detour stuff, you let us know. So normally from here we would talk about the bookshelf or about Galaxy's Edge. However, there's not really any news on either one of those, which leads us into our Star Wars merchandise segment. Our first story is that New Zealand Mint has now released a Star Wars classic coin for the Sith villain Darth Maul. The coin comes in 1 ounce silver, a 1/4 ounce gold, or 1 ounce gold. The prices range from $85 for the silver to $2,500, with the gold being the most expensive. And as they usually do, the coins come with a certificate of authenticity and a Star Wars commemorative box. Our second story is that Hasbro has released 2 more of their San Diego Comic-Con exclusives. They showed a sneak peek of the Black Series Han Solo and Minot figures and the Black Series centerpiece Rey and Kylo Ren figure. The Han exclusive will run for $34.99, while the scene with Rey and Kylo will be priced at $109.99. And lastly, Funko is also releasing some exclusive Star Wars pop figures for San Diego Comic-Con. One will be the Ruthless Bounty Hunter Cad Bane, and the other will be an Imperial Patrol Stormtrooper from Solo. Funko also announced they will be releasing in August some figures from the Clone Wars television series. The figures will include Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, and 2 different versions of Ahsoka, Anakin's Padawan, affectionately known as Snips in the show, although most would like to probably forget that.
That's true.
So, Jonathan, some different announcements all the way across. Any particular thing catching your eye?
I mean, pops are always plus. Can't really see all of them, but they're on the wall.
No, but there's a big pork behind me. That is also a pop.
That too. And then the Kylo and Rey thing is pretty great. I can't buy any of these because I don't have the space.
Guys, literally, if we turn the camera around, it's shameful. Like, just how many things on shelves. Yes, this is just one room. Although I have to admit, I will probably have to get an Ahsoka pop figure at some point. Sure. I love Ahsoka.
Yeah, definitely. All looks good though.
Yeah. Especially for those of you who are going to be going to San Diego Comic-Con, things to look out for. I feel like Cad Bane is one that people have been waiting for quite some time. So, very exciting. All right, well, we are not doing a discussion of the week because we had breaking news, which was kind of our discussion of the week.
That's true.
Which does bring us to Star Wars on this day.
Yep. And this one is dealing with Rebels, as we talked about it earlier. This was a couple years ago, 2015, I think. The Rebels Season 2 premiered with a 2-parter of the Siege of Lothal, which I still think is probably one of the best Rebels episodes, personally.
It is really a fantastic episode.
Kanan and Ezra meet up with Vader, and there's a nice little scuffle there. But even just as an episode, it's a very solid episode.
Yes.
So that's kind of whenever I thought Rebels was stepping up their game.
Well done, Dave Filoni.
Was with that premiere. So if you haven't seen it, you definitely
That's right.
should.
Still need to go back and watch Rebels if you guys have not watched that show. It is not just for the kids.
It's true. It is not. Well, that leads us to the end of the show. It's a shorter show this week because there really is not a whole lot going on.
Well, it's always really sad when we don't have you guys interacting. Sorry it's not live tonight. That's sad for us too.
But thanks for watching episode 37 all the same.
That's right.
You can check us out on The Shot List, which is our regular movie podcast on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You can also find our reviews on Instagram and Twitter at ATL_movies. If you have an iPhone or an iPad, you can check us out on Apple News. Just search Above the Line and hit the heart, and we'll appear right in your news feed. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at BeachJD.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at MCBeach. And normally we tell you guys to email questions in. Still feel free to do that. But if you want to just leave a comment, like I said, we will get to them next week because we definitely pay attention to our social media channels.
Yes.
So
until next week, may the Force be with you.
Always.
Always.